A true spooky story. It is the autumn. By Gary Davies, 2018. Two Americans, Paul and Dave, have just emigrated from the USA to live in London. Paul's American mom, Jo, moved to London 2 years earlier. She has recently moved out of her own 3-bedroom apartment to live a mile away with her newfound love she met on the internet. Dave and Paul are moving into Jo's old apartment, and Jo is putting an advertisement on the internet that the third vacant room in the apartment is available to rent. Paul and Dave make a plan to go on a long weekend holiday to Venice in Italy, but they change their mind and decide to go to Blackpool instead. They are excited to see the illuminations and stay in a hotel for 3 nights. Paul and Dave are staying in a Blackpool hotel. They play bingo, watch a stand-up comedian, drink some beer, and get half drunk. Next, they go to an amusement arcade and Dave blows a lot of money away on the gambling and game machines. Paul says, "Enough, Dave, let's go." On the way out to the amusement arcade, Paul buys some scratch cards and puts them in his pocket unscratched. They are walking down the Golden Mile in Blackpool, admiring the lights and laser beams projecting into the sky. They walk past a makeshift tall tent in a shop doorway on the corner of the main drag with a sign that says, "Merlin, the Prophet of Doom, how will you die?" Inquired within. As they walk past the tent, they both are solicited by Merlin. He was waiting for them to pass by. Merlin is wearing a purple turban. Paul and Dave go into Merlin's tent and ask him if he is a clairvoyant fortune teller. Merlin has an electric plasma ball glowing on the table in the tent, and some smoldering joss sticks giving a potent but relaxing odor. The tent canvas attenuates all of the street noise. Sitting down, they can hear the cuckoo clock tick. After some banter, Dave buys from Merlin a plasma ball just like the one on the table for £50 in cash. Dave and Merlin play with Zelda cards to test Dave for his extrasensory perception and self-clairvoyance. Dave gets an above-average score for his first try matching cards. Merlin then teaches Dave how to improve his ability by focusing on the matching cards after the target card has been revealed. To build a mental story picture with the pair of cards for 15 seconds once he knows the correct answer. They take a break before trying with the Zender cards again. Merlin persuades Dave to download an app to his smart computer wristwatch by photographing the QR barcode next to a poster of the Grim Reaper. Dave's wristwatch then has a mode that shows a countdown, how long have he has got left to live, and also displays time and date of death. After installing the Grim Reaper app on his wristwatch, the countdown clock says 64 hours of lifetime remaining, time of death Saturday at 11:47 am. Dave jokingly wants to know how he will die. Merlin puts a portable credit card payment machine onto the table and says, "Dave, it will cost you £500 to know." "I can't try to tell you that, let's do it, have it go at your future." Merlin then says, "The future is lie, the record being played, it all exists already and it cannot be changed. Telepathic communication can travel faster than the speed of light. Albert Einstein was wrong." Merlin also says some other odd and strange comments about telepathic communication replacing radio communication in the future because it has no propagation delay, making it possible to instantly communicate between faraway planets. Dave whips his credit card out of his wallet to pay Merlin, but the payment transaction fails because the credit card has exceeded his credit card limit. Paul says, "No, come on, let's go, Dave." They all hear the police siren, then moments later the tent they are all in is pulled down to pieces by 4 police officers, one with a barking dog. Just the skeleton tent frame remains, leaving them exposed to drizzle rain. The police put Merlin under arrest. Merlin says repeatedly, "Dave, the man that rows a Venetian gondolier," as he is bundled into a police car. Paul and Dave continue walking down the Golden Mile main drag and pass another fortune teller in a wooden hut that is a more official and authentic. They go inside the gypsy hut and Paul says, "It is my turn now." Paul gives the gypsy fortune teller her requested £50 in cash and she is smiling enthusiastically. They all drink a cup of tea in the hut and small talk chit-chat. Afterwards she examines Paul's empty teacup and she says, "In 7 months from now, you Paul will be happily married to a tall brunette girl whose profession is medicine and you will be on a holiday at the Seychelles." Dave says, "That is not right because we are together." Dave then mentions their encounter with Merlin and shows her his countdown Grim Reaper watch. The gypsy fortune teller then grabs Dave's empty teacup off the table and examines the leftover tea leaves in his cup. Her face then drops and she cries. Paul and Dave are shocked. They stop for the day and go back to their hotel. Paul and Dave go home from Blackpool to their apartment in London. It is Saturday morning and Dave's Grim Reaper watch says about 4 hours of life remaining. Paul finds in his pocket the scratch cards from Blackpool. Paul scratches the cards and finds out he won the prize. A holiday in the fort in the Seychelles and instructions to call the phone number obtain the prize. Dave is talking about what it is like to be dead and whether it is possible to become a ghost in an afterlife. Dave says, "If I die, the very next day at exactly 12 noon, the ghost will smash that plasma ball we bought from Merlin that is on the mantelpiece on the floor." They eat lunch together and then go shopping downtown. Dave wants to go to the bank to get some cash and sort out his finances. Dave and Paul walk down the road wading through and kicking up leaves. They wait at a bus stop then catch the bus to town. Dave's Grim Reaper watch says 2 hours of lifetime remaining. As they catch the bus to town they go upstairs on the bus and talk about the Grim Reaper. They arrive downtown and Dave's Grim Reaper watch says that there is 45 minutes of lifetime remaining. Paul and Dave go into a bank and queue up. Dave is laughing as his wristwatch shows that there is 22 minutes of lifetime remaining. Dave is called to a cashier and tries to sort out his finances with an overdraft. A man in the adjacent banking cubicle points a gun at his cashier and demands money. The cashier presses a panic button under her desk. A man dressed like a Venetian gondola rower storms out of an office and pulls the bank robber's arm around from behind. During the tackle Dave is accidentally shot in the arm and chest and falls to the floor. Dave's wristwatch says 20 minutes of life remaining. An ambulance arrives and Dave is taken into the ambulance and connected to a heart monitor that is beeping twice a second. Dave's Grim Reaper watch eventually counts down to 0 and simultaneously the heart monitor gives a continuous tone. Dave is dead exactly at the end of Grim Reaper's countdown. The next day Paul wakes up at his mother's house. He spent the night with his mom sleeping on the sofa in the living room. The clock on the wall says it is 11:30 am. Paul's mother says, "Some lady wants to view the room at your apartment at 12 o'clock noon. It's in half of an hour's time." Paul thinks he will run across town and just make it in time to show the woman around his apartment. Paul runs across the town in a strong wind and gloomy drizzle. He passes several clocks on the outside of buildings that are showing it is getting near to 12 o'clock noon. Paul is out of breath and makes it back to his apartment. The clock in the apartment shows it is 3 minutes to 12 o'clock noon. Paul remembers Dave saying the previous day that if he were dead he would be smashing the plasma ball at exactly 12 o'clock noon. Paul stares at the plasma ball, the clock directly above it on the wall. The clock shows 12 o'clock noon, and the plasma ball does not fall off the mantelpiece and smash. The window of the apartment is open and gusts of wind flap the curtains around and blow a piece of paper off the mantelpiece. Paul sits in a chair in total silence staring at the plasma ball. He waits for the woman to knock at the door and see the room available to rent. Paul thinks she is late or not coming around. The clock shows that it is a 1 minute to 1 o'clock. Paul turns on the radio and the radio station says, "Coming up the midday news. Yesterday the clocks went back an hour at 2 a.m. We are no longer in British summertime but now in normal Greenwich Mean Time or winter time. Have you adjusted all your clocks to the correct time?" Paul gets out of his chair and immediately adjusts the time on the wall clock. He struggles to put the clock back on the wall hook. The clock shows that it is a few seconds to 12 o'clock noon. Paul realizes the time and trembles. Seconds later at exactly 12 o'clock noon, the clock falls off the wall, knocking the plasma ball below it onto the floor, and it smashes. It happened at 12 o'clock noon, just like Dave said it would. Bewildered, Paul stands in the room and listens to the news about the bank robbery he witnessed. After the news, the radio plays the Beatles' "Love Me Do." There is a knock at the door. Paul opens the door and a tall, beautiful brunette girl stands there. She says, "Hello, my name is Kate. I have come to view the room that is available to rent. I work in a pharmaceutical laboratory as a technician. I spoke to your mother Jo on the telephone yesterday.